Presumed guilty under scrutiny, the GRAP files. Episode 8, the counterstrike. Welcome back to Presumed Guilty. I'm your host, Roger Warstone. In episode 7, the final blow, we reached the bottom. The Army forced my retirement, hit me with an illegal $70,000 debt, and left me homeless and personally destroyed. I had faced the world with a $5 paycheck and an internal struggle against despair. But out of the wreckage, I found a new purpose. My time for mourning was over. The Army had declared war on my life, and now I was going to investigate them. I was no longer a flag soldier. I was a civilian detective with nothing to lose and a criminal case to build against the institution that tried to destroy me. This episode is the counterstrike, the methodical, planned execution of my fight to expose the corruption. The first move, we start with my first strategic action, using political channels to force the Army to answer for its illegal acts. Building the case, we will trace how I used my detective agency skills to assemble a body of evidence so irrefutable that it will ultimately reach Congress and force a national reckoning. The time for being presumed guilty is over. When you are fighting an institution as vast and secretive as the US Army, you cannot use conventional military channels. You have to use political leverage. I knew this from experience. And I want you to understand, first of all, it's not the Army the one I'm trying to fight with. I'm trying to fight with the people that were in the Army doing illegal stuff and possibly covering up something larger than just a cover up for higher ups. Years before the GRAP scandal, when we first started out recruiting in Philadelphia, our team had to deal with a racist sergeant major who used to call the Philly team the A team. For him, it meant the asshole team. He was a bully who would constantly call me out and scream at me, issuing threats that exceeded my situation. One time, when he started his harassment, I snapped. This was in the beginning of the time when I just started out recruiting. I told him I was tired of his abuse and that I would talk to my uncle who works at Congressman Brady's office and tell him how he treated all of us here in Philadelphia. But I didn't really have an uncle. It was just a friend of ours. He was an older gentleman, maybe around his 70s. I was in my 40s, and we used to call him uncle. I never actually went to Congressman Brady's office, but that was enough. The sergeant major changed his ways immediately. He stopped harassing us. And even though his attitude was different behind closed doors, we never heard from him again. I learned a powerful lesson right then. The chain of command ends, but the political chain of accountability goes straight to Congress. I knew Congressman Brady was the way to go. He was the most powerful voice for the South Philadelphia and was known for helping constituents deal with bureaucratic issues. I had a crucial friend and an ally who worked for Congressman Brady, an older gentleman, our uncle, the Marine veteran, who was always incredibly helpful to us and our soldiers. He understood the meaning of service, and more importantly, he understood institutional abuse. So, my very first step in the fight against CID and the Army National Guard malicious prosecution was a congressional inquiry. This wasn't a request for help, it was a formal administrative move designed to put immediate, high level political pressure on the Department of the Army, forcing them to open their files and acknowledge their illegal actions. This was the opening move of my counterstrike. In the next segment, I'll detail how the congressman's office opened the door and how I took the next crucial step demanding the truth. My initial move was swift and direct. I walked right into Congressman Brady's office in Philadelphia and submitted my request for a congressional inquiry to my trusted friend, the Marine veteran working there. In that inquiry, I wasn't just asking for my rank back. I was demanding that a full investigation should take place on what happened to me. And I wanted the officers involved to be investigated on decisions that were taken, especially the illegal backdating of the flag and the $70,000 debt. But a few months passed and the answer came back. Our friend called me up and told me that the request was being kicked back. The federal level determined that since the National Guard operates under dual status, the core of the particular fight, the administrative action taken by the commandant, the adjutant general, was considered a state level issue under the governor's authority. It was frustrating, but it was a crucial piece of information. It confirmed the exact political battlefield I needed to conquer. Fortunately, my contact at Congressman Brady's office didn't abandon that fight. He has someone that might be able to help us out, referring me to the offices of Governor Tom Wolf at that time. My case landed on the desk of a key staff member, an old retired Air Force guy who understood the military bureaucracy and the pain of veterans. This pivot was strategic, going directly to the executive branch of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, which oversees the Pennsylvania Army National Guard. This was the only place where I could compel the adjutant general and the command structure to answer for their illegal actions. This was still a political fight, but now it was a focused state fight. The next step was gathering the paper, the definitive evidence that the state officials wouldn't be able to ignore. After Congressman Brady's office punted my case to the state level, I immediately followed up. I spoke to the retired Air Force staffer in Governor Wolf's office, explaining my situation. He was sympathetic and used the same strong wording I had used in my initial request, demanding an inquiry. The inquiry was sent down to a major in the Army National Guard who had a sergeant major assisting him. Their response was swift and definitive, echoing the original bureaucratic malice. The decision taken against me would not be investigated. Their justification was infuriating. They claimed the investigation was my fault and due to the fact that my integrity was questioned. There was no way officers of high rank were going to be questioned about their illegal actions. They used the flag they had refused to remove as their very excuse not to investigate the flag itself. They had close ranks. At this time, I was completely mad at everyone. I had been shut down in two different places, the federal Congress and the state governor's office, and it felt like I was not going to get anywhere. A few months later, I tried one more time. I went to another congressman near me. I knew I had to build my paperwork differently now, focusing on the illegal nature of the demotion and the debt. I had to write everything out by hand because they didn't have a form. I wrote a really long, detailed piece meticulously laying out the facts. They told me this was going to take a while and I will hear from them. I waited months. I went back there at least two times and they told me the paperwork was still pending. I went there a third time and demanded to see my paperwork, and guess what? They lost my paperwork. My fight never ends. It had been years of political resistance, and I was going nowhere. Losing that meticulous handwritten document was demoralizing. It wasn't fair, and there was no way I would have the emotional energy to write the entire piece again. I gave Congressman Boyle's office in Busleton Avenue a really bad review. This bureaucratic incompetence became a regular part of my life, and there was no institution left for me to turn to. Then something started to change for me and for a lot of other people involved in GRAP. I received a letter from the CID telling me that they didn't have enough information to continue an investigation on me. What the fuck? Why didn't they say this shit before, right before I was going to retire? Now they wait 5 years later, 10 years later for me to know this stuff. After so many years, they finally gave up. It was an administrative victory, but immediately generated the burning, crucial question: what happened to my money? The CID giving up didn't solve the illegal demotion to $70,000 debt or the $5 check that I have received. That money was still gone. I realized I couldn't rely on politicians or military bureaucrats to fix this. If I wanted the truth, I had to find it myself. how to use my training as a detective. The next step was gathering the paper, the definitive evidence that the state officials wouldn't be able to ignore. This segment is the roadblock and the idea. The CID letter finally came after years of malice. They admitted they didn't have enough information to continue an investigation on me. This letter was a colossal victory against the CID's initial corrupt intent, but it must have terrified the officers involved. They must know that a big lawsuit was coming for them, and they realized many of their people were going to be sent to jail for what they had done. But we'll have to see if that even happens. In the short term, this letter did nothing to get me back my demoted rank. It didn't return the money they illegally stole from me. And even if they paid it back, the double taxes they took from me will not be excluded. The system had won the financial war, even as they lost the criminal investigation. I started asking around, seeking legal and administrative advice on what else I could do with this CID letter. I was told I needed to take this document and appeal to the Army's own internal mechanism, specifically the Army Board of Correction of Military Records, to have the Army itself decide if they should give me back my rank or not. This suggestion was utterly insulting and proved the systemic nature of the corruption. This was dumb. The Army had put me on with a flag backdated illegally to 2005, and now they wanted me to ask them politically to reverse their own illegal decision. No one was willing to help me get this done through the official channels. The people who committed the crime were not the judges. Now I'm at the point where I don't care about the money. I want you to investigate the people that did this to me. I want to get justice. I realized the entire formal process, congressional governor's office, and now the ABCMR was designed to stonewall and exhaust honest soldiers. I didn't know what, if anything, I should do next, but I had an idea. The CID letter was a key. It unlocked the real fight. If I could trust the Army to review its own records, I will force them to reveal all their records. I will stop asking for justice and start demanding documents. I decided to stop playing their political game and start playing my own administrative game. I put my detective agency skills to work. This is the closing. I walked away from the governor's office and the loss of my paperwork with a single unshakable certainty. The system was rigged against the truth. They didn't want my honest appeal to the ABCMR. They wanted me to quietly accept my illegal demotion, my $70,000 debt, and my personal destruction. But I realized that the CID letter, which reluctantly admitted their failure, was the only opening I needed. It confirmed they had to drop the criminal case, but it left the administrative damage untouched. My staff sergeant rank and the massive financial debt. I had to use this opening to bypass their bureaucratic walls entirely. I stopped playing the political game and started playing with the detective's game. My personal war was now shifting from political petitioning to bureaucratic siege for warfare. If I couldn't get justice by asking the armies to help, I will get the truth by forcing them to reveal their crimes. I channeled the quiet pain of those longing nights, the humiliation of the $5 check, and the rage from the loss of my family into a methodical, documented based attack. The Army believed their paperwork was secure, but I knew the truth was hidden in those folders. But that's not all. In episode 9, we'll shift this focus to where I am now. We will discuss the final strategies we're waiting for and what we need in order to make the Army see what needs to get done so that this kind of systemic bullying doesn't happen again. Just like what is happening now with the President of the US and the Secretary of Defense, doing things by bullying the higher ranks. Things need to change for the better of the soldiers all the way to the bottom. This fight's about making the higher ranks accountable for the actions they take and the actions they don't take. On honest soldiers like myself, the final goal is clear: change the system. Subscribe to Presume Guilty Under Scrutiny to witness the final resolution of this saga and unveiling of the comprehensive plan for military reform. The fight for justice is never over.